Hi, this is Shivarajaya from vitalcoaching.com. We are talking about core dynamics in coupling dynamics, and the topic for this video is how to use these core values and mindsets videos. I film quite a big series here of videos. There is about 25 to 30 videos that express, qualities like truth, privacy, prioritizing, responsiveness, transparency, clarity, and so on. So I want to give you some hints on how to use these videos and how to use these qualities of this model. The goal here is not for your couple to be perfect. There are going to be flaws, there are going to be imperfections. The goal here is rather to give you a kind of architecture and suggestions on the places where you could look at when something is not working the way you want in your relationship. For instance, imagine that you have the passion or the fire that is missing. It's important to understand really why is it that you are unhappy in your relationship. You might be, romance is missing, or I feel like I'm not being respected, or I feel like there is lack of trust, transparency or clarity in the relationship. I feel like my partner is not being honest. I feel like there is not enough peace and light in the relationship, or maybe my partner is not present with me. So it's not about covering everything and being absolutely 100% perfect in everything. The goal here is to identify the places where there is a limiting factor. Of course, you want to have an overview, you want to understand those dynamics, you want to understand really how to manifest a positive, powerful relationship, and but allow yourself to not be perfect, okay? If you aim for 100% perfection in all those different qualities, you're going to end up being really, really stressed. If every time you see your partner doing something that is not in 100% integrity with some of these things, for instance, losing presence at some point, and you go like, hey, you're losing presence, remember we have to be present with each other, that's going to create way too much tension. So what I want you to do is really allow yourself flexibility, allow yourself fluidity with those values. This is a little bit like an art form. And you want to play with those different ingredients in the best possible way you can. How do you improve, or how do you gain some of this quality? You have to focus on it consistently. For instance, imagine that you are not expressing enough gratitude or validation for each other. Well, then that's something to practice together. You can decide you have a kind of coupling meeting at some point, or check-in, and you go like, I realized that right now I don't feel validated enough, over the next week I would love you to focus a little bit more on that. Tell me that I'm good at what I'm doing. Tell me the things that you love about what I'm doing. So it's not something to force, but something just to bring into awareness. And the goal, what I believe creates really a really healthy, beautiful balance in your relationship is to score anywhere between 80 to 100% in all these areas. So if there is an area or a place where you feel stacked, for instance, in the area of evolving, or the area of having expansion in your relationship together. So if you have the feeling that you feel stacked, and you score really low on that specific quality, a 10 or 20%, then what you want is to focus on it a little bit more about it, and you want to find ways of keep on evolving in your relationship so that you don't feel completely stacked and limited in your own personal and coupling evolution. So something that I did bring in right there is the idea that you can quantify those qualities in your relationship. For instance, how high you score when it comes to passion? How high do you score when it comes to respect? Might be like, we are respecting each other, except when we are having a little bit of a trigger fight and we say nasty things to each other, but otherwise the level of respect is acceptable, it's good, it scores maybe 80%. And then, for instance, when it comes to prioritizing, are we prioritizing each other or our couple enough? How high do you score in there? And if you notice that your partner, for instance, is making systematic choices that don't include you or don't include the relationship, then, the prioritizing might be scoring at 20, 30, 40%. So it's important for the balance of the relationship to bring that score up a little bit. So, to add in those qualities, it requires very often some consistency and focus. So what I encourage you, if you want to improve the quality of your relationship, is really to have weekly check-ins to see how you're doing in these things. I like also a lot the idea of having words to name things, because sometimes there is something that makes you uncomfortable in the relationship and you don't know what it is. You go like, something's not quite right. And then when you start checking in, you realize that it's going to most probably fit into one of those terms or one of these qualities or core values that I give you. For instance, you might notice that your partner is not really checking in with you when he's making choices or she's making choices. Well, that's the quality of consideration. It means that they are not considering you in their choices. They are not considering your position or how this is going to affect your field when they are making this choice. So obviously, you are going to keep on being triggered by something, and sometimes you cannot really name it. So having a moment where you can actually name what's happening with a very simple word. Can you summarize the place where you're getting triggered? You say, yeah, actually, I realize that my partner is not being present with me, for instance. Or I realize that I'm not feeling kindness enough. Or I realize that my partner is not financially contributing equally in the relationship or in the coupling experience. Or I realize that we are missing fun and joy. So once you can actually name what's happening, then you actually know exactly where you need to put your energy in the future. So this is, this is really powerful. Another thing that I want to point out is, what if your partner or yourself, you are not able to score high or score simply in one of these in one of these qualities. So some of these qualities, if they are not being taken care of in your relationship, are going to be potentially deal breakers. Let's take an example of something that might be very triggering. For instance, the responsiveness. You send a message to your partner and it takes them 2 days to get back to you. Okay, this is called responsiveness. They are not being responsive. It means that they don't show up when you are engaging or connecting with them. And so the lack of responsiveness means that there is a delay in how long it takes them to show up for you. So what you do, imagine that you mention that to your partner and you say, you know what, it really triggers me that it takes you 2 days to respond to a text message. It's a simple thing. And in the time that it takes you to get back to me, I'm there just waiting for an answer from you. And so that can really be challenging in the dynamics of a couple, in the dynamics of your relationship. So imagine that you mention it and your partner doesn't change their behavior, or it's you, but most of the times it's something that you might be experiencing the limiting factor within this context. So what do you do with it? Your partner is not being responsive. How do you respond to that, or how do you react? So in a situation like this one, there are a couple of possibilities. This might be one element amongst other elements that are not working for your relationship, and the accumulation of those different aspects that are not working might lead to a deal breaker. It means that eventually that's going to be the thing that is going to trigger the end of your relationship. He's being or she's being disrespectful, lack of presence, lack of responsiveness, not enough passion, feeling stacked, lack of inclusiveness, and lack of other things. So eventually those qualities that are missing in your relationship are going to be accumulating, and eventually you're going to reach a breaking point where you go like, you know what, I'm done. This is not working for me. Or it might be just one element that is not working. For instance, this aspect of responsiveness. You can keep on trying to educate your partner and bring it up over and over again. You be like, you know what, this is really important for me. I wonder what we can do about it. And eventually you manage to get your partner to change. Or you go like, you know what, I try really hard and he or she are not responsive, they are not responding. So what you are going to do about it is potentially try to navigate the challenge from a place where you learn how to be more energetically or emotionally flexible, and keep that in mind when you're communicating with them. You say, I'm sending a message and it's possible that I'm not going to get a response. It's possible that I'm going to be waiting for 2 days for my partner to engage. So as you can see, you can go like, but it's such an easy thing to do. Yes, and sometimes you're going to be dealing with partners in relationships where there are core skills like this one that are missing. Okay, and as I was saying earlier, it's potentially a deal breaker, but it's potentially also something that you accept the imperfections of your partner and learn how to navigate with them. The choice of this being a deal breaker or not is up to you. There are lots of things that you can do. For instance, when you are missing honesty, you notice that your partner is not being honest with you or being in denial about something, you can go like, you know what? I see the truth, you don't see it the same way. Let's accept to disagree on that and look at it like a certain degree of immaturity in your partner, and you go like, you know what, I can still live with that. This is not a deal breaker. Unless, again, there is an accumulation of things and eventually you come to a point where you reach a breaking point. So the decision is yours, it's completely yours. There is a moment where you go like, you know what, I cannot deal with that. This is too much for me. There is too much lack of honesty, and you don't know how to respect me, and I'm out. But the moment where you decide whether something, a certain quality is acceptable or not, is really up to you. Okay, that's it for now.